Okay guys, I'm going to show you how we skull cape a buck deer. This is Big Chocolate. We came right here, come about a foot past the shoulder. That may be a little bit much, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. Now, I am by no means a professional. I'm not a taxidermist, but I do this well enough that my taxidermist doesn't complain, or if he does, he ain't saying nothing to me. But I like to have a caping knife, a very sharp razor blade knife, and a screwdriver. And the first cut I'm going to make is right here between the brow tines. I'm going to cut about a 6-inch Y right there, back here. 6 inches will get his skull plate off. That's where I'll pull him all out, and I'll start with a razor blade knife. And then once I get right below the base of the antlers, I'll do a V. And you cut underneath the hair. If you cut like this, you'll cut the hair off. A good taxidermist can sew all this back up. I have seen people cut this all the way to his backbone. Me personally, that breaks my heart, so I don't do that. Some taxidermists may like it that way. I've never mounted a deer. I don't claim to have ever mounted a deer. I just get them ready to go for transportation. I will add a disclaimer. If I have ever caped one and not slipped and made a little bit of a boo-boo, I'm doing it wrong. You're gonna make a mistake or two. Just try to keep them minimal so your taxidermist doesn't have to do too much sewing. Now, this is feeling pretty good. A lot of times you really gotta get this. And what you don't wanna do right here is get too aggressive removing them off the horns. In that case, that would be a bad rip. Right here, I'll grab my screwdriver, and I'll just work it around. This is the part I hate the least, but it's not the toughest part. The toughest part is around the tear gland. Okay, there. Get back to my screwdriver. This one's peeling off beautifully. Sometimes I can be a little frozen, a little thicker skull cape. Get around the ear. I don't leave too much meat on the cape, but that's easier said than done. But right here is very important. This is what I call the toughest part. Around the eyes, getting around the eyes and then the tear duct. That's probably, if you're gonna mess up anywhere, it's gonna be right there. So that's why I like to have a scalpel, a razor knife, whatever you wanna call this. We've got one this one's a Havilon. We got one right there that's outdoor edge. Both are really good, really sharp, and at the end of the day, that's what matters. You just got to take it slow. This is not a race. I have done these before. Trying to catch a plane or another state, trying to come back home and rush it and mess it up. You got to have plenty of time. I can do one of these in about 30-45 minutes. That's just me. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can do them quicker, but that's usually how long I allow for it. I'll have Colin get it tight right here. All right, this is the tough part. Very tough part, around the eye. And then around this tear duct right here, you can start seeing form right below the eyeball. You have to have an extremely sharp knife. I can get my thumb in there to kind of help me work it down. That's his actual, right there, you can. There's his tear duct. That's the tough spot. I haven't messed it up yet. Then what I like to do is come back and forth every so often, make sure I'm not cutting in the wrong spot. As you can see, it's perfect all around the eye. We're down to the tear duct, but I'm always extremely nervous right here. And keep your knife sharp. You can even sharpen this one. Blade probably needs to be sharpened, but it's only got a few more minutes with this. Just keep that one sharp and kind of resolve it. Right here, got this one down past the tear duct. I'm going to start working it down below his ear. Once I get this back all the way to about the V, where I feel like I can successfully get the skull plate out of there, down past the eyes, I'll flip it over. This to me is the easiest part. Around the jaw. Sometimes I'll do this first. Probably smarter to not do it first. Right here you just about almost have to have it's either got to be a really sharp knife or a scalpel, because this is a really tight cut to get in here. You want to be super sharp. Don't cut towards yourself. Thankfully I've cut myself a lot doing this, but never bad enough I've had to have stitches. Here, get around his nose canal, his nostrils. I probably leave a little more on here than's actually needed, but I leave that up to my taxidermist. Now, our deer will get mounted by Rick Lowry out of Bolivar, Missouri. Met him at the Iowa Deer Classic a few years ago and have become really good friends with him. He's, in my opinion, the best taxidermist in the world. But good work. One thing about taxidermy is good work getting cheap, and cheap work getting good. And fast work isn't always good. Now sometimes they can rush them up, but got a few more cuts here, about another inch, and I will connect it, and then it'll just slide off like a glove, like Hannibal Lecter. And I always stop about the eye and go from here down. It's just easier for me. I don't know if that is the proper way to do it, but it's easier for me to go straight down on them. And we have him almost all the way through here. You can get in here, once you can see pretty good. Some taxidermists will want the measurements of a deer's neck to order the form. You can measure them, you know, right above the shoulder, the neck of the shoulder, right below the jawbone. And like I said earlier, I cut this about 6 inches. Now, a lot of people cut them more, and then you don't have to do all this work that I'm doing now. But when I'm caping him off the body, and then I call this a skull cape, when I'm caping him off the body, I get all the way down as far as I can, about to the jaw. And then at that point, I don't have as much meat to go around right here. Thus, I don't have to do a bigger cut on the back, and taxidermist has to do less sewing. Another little tip I got is I'm a little more cautious. I leave a little more meat on here probably than, you know, would be desired, but I don't want to cut it too close. And taxidermists really have to go behind me and do a lot of fixing, so I can always come in here and trim that meat up and flesh him off a little bit. There is the Hannibal Lecter. Pulling off the face mask. Get right there. I'm going to have to come back in and take that meat off when I'm done. But for now, just trying to get this cape off. Again, I disclose, I am not a taxidermist. Ta-da! I'll clean these little bits of meat up. Then what I'll do is I'll take him. Pretty cape on that deer. Yeah. I'm just gonna come in here and score it right here. I go about the eye socket. And I like to take a spot and mark it with my knife, kind of a groove where my sawzall fit in. And I go back here and get that meat out of the way. If I can score it right in there, go down. And if you can cut these both in a V like this with your sawzall blade or a meat saw, you could use a meat saw, but I thankfully got a really good sawzall and I'll cut it down in a V. And if you make a perfect cut, the brain, all the brain matter will fall right out, and then you can just clean it up. Now on the brain matter, I'll go outside, I'll take a knife, run it up in there. He will be transportation legal. All right, now what we'll do with that cut, I can take my knife and that whole brain will pretty much just pop out just like that. Perfect. What I'll do, I'll run my water hose in there, clean that entirely out. We're transportation legal. What I'll do, I'll take my knife, clean up this backside, put some curing salt on it, and it'll be ready for the taxidermist.